Mobile photography or phone photography is good, handy, convenient because you can carry your phone wherever, whenever, or your point and shoot camera. But there reaches a time when you kind of on a plateau. You no longer have improvements in your photos. I'm not saying you can't take good photos on a phone or a point and shoot, but time will come when you need to upgrade from just shooting with your phone or your point and shoot to a real camera, maybe a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. And on switching or on upgrading to a mirrorless camera, there are things that you need to put in mind. Of course, you have the automatic mode on these cameras, but what's the point of upgrading if you've been shooting automatic, just a phone or a point and shoot? Everything is automated. Everything the camera decides for you. And upgrading on a real camera or a DSLR or mirrorless camera and still shoot in automatic. I'm not saying you can't take good photos or portraits in automatic or automatic mode, but you need to learn other modes of shooting. AV mode, TV mode, that's aperture priority mode or programmable mode. There is shutter speed mode or the real manual mode. That's when you actually master your camera, how everything works in a camera. And shooting manual, you need to understand how the exposure triangle works. The exposure triangle involves three elements. That's the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture. Now the ISO controls how sensitive your camera sensor is to light. The more the ISO, the more sensitive your camera is to light. But that comes at a cost. ISO noise. The more the ISO, the more the noise in your images. That's the ISO. And the other thing is the aperture. The aperture is how wide your shutter blades are. The smaller the number or the smaller the aperture, the wider the shutter blades are. That means more light going through to the camera sensor. And the bigger the number, the smaller the aperture. A larger aperture means a smaller number, which means more light into the camera sensor, and that means smaller depth of field. The less things in focus. The larger the aperture, that's a smaller number. The smaller f-stop, and that's less things in focus. And the smaller the aperture, that means a bigger f-stop, a bigger aperture number, meaning a bigger depth of field. That means more things in focus, more things in focus. The last element is the shutter speed. Now this controls how sharp or fuzzy your images are. The slower the shutter speed, the more motion in your subject in focus. And the faster the shutter speed is, the frozen or the less movement of the image in focus, yeah? So you need to balance all these three things. The rule of thumb is you need to manage these two, that's the aperture and the shutter speed, before you tamper with the ISO, because the more you raise your ISO, the more image noise and the less quality of your images. A good ISO is between 100 to maybe 1600. The best ISO for me personally, because that's when the ISO noise is at the minimum. You need to balance these three things. That's the ISO, aperture, and the shutter speed to get those sharp, crispy, clear images. That was just a quick guide on how things work, how the exposure triangle works on cameras. And if you haven't upgraded yet to a real camera, you can shoot in Pro. Smartphones have that option of shooting in Pro, where you have the ability to tamper with your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture. So maybe you can practice on that on just your mobile phone, but shooting in Pro mode, not in the other automated mode, yeah? And when time reaches when you need to upgrade to a camera, you will be familiar with everything with the exposure triangle. See you in the next one. Peace and love.